Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life. Hello, everybody. On this episode, I've got an old friend of mine from 20th Special Forces Group, Dave Cardenas. SF medic extraordinaire, accomplished team sergeant, and all-around cool rock and roll dude. So before we get too far into this, why don't you give everybody a little bit on your background, Dave?
Obviously, more like you, military background. Started in '88. I was in the 82nd Airborne as an infantryman. Did several years there. Was a long-range surveillance guy. Eventually, there at the 82nd. Moved on to the National Guard in Illinois. Got out of active duty. Moved back to the Chicago area. Found out about 20th Group and Alpha 220 Special Forces Group out of Chicago at the time. They're out of Indiana now, and was there with them for the rest of the time, both as a part-timer and as a full-timer for the unit. Went back active duty for the last few years of my career and retired just outside of Fort Bragg. Since then, I've been doing numerous things that I'm sure we'll go over during your podcast, and love to talk to you about it. Still in the training environment, still doing training and stuff like that. Teaching the next generation of war fighters and law enforcement.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this conversation. First off, because we haven't talked in a while, it's going to be good to catch up, right?
Yeah.
But also because you're doing a bunch of really cool stuff and some pretty interesting stuff in the way that it's several different fields and areas. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. For those of you who might think Dave looked a little bit familiar, he was the guy that ran over to the dead body in Public Enemies of Public Enemy #1 outside the theater in Chicago.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about my Hollywood debut with Johnny Depp and Christian Bale.
Your 5 minutes of fame. So every time I watch that movie, I'm like, that's my friend. That's my guy. So, so what are you doing now? Like, let's talk about how, actually, no, let's do it this way. Let's start out with the pipeline for SF and kind of how that informed stuff and training once you were tabbed and all that. Because I want to segue into how that affected the stuff you're doing now, both the tactical stuff and the stuff that isn't even remotely tactical, like the music. You know what I mean? How it all kind of fits together. Right. So let's talk about your experiences in the pipeline and how that kind of shaped things for you.
I've always wanted to. When I joined the Army, I wasn't sure. I was an unsure kid. I was not a jock by any stretch. I was a fat kid in high school. Got made fun of, that kind of thing. And I joined the Army with the hopes and anticipation of joining the Chicago Police Department, down the line. So I initially went in as an MP. Don't tell anybody. Anyway. So as a reservist and as an MP. Went through basic, kicked the shit out of it. It was way easier than I thought. And I was like, well, it just felt good. It felt right, So I decided I wanted to go back active duty. But if I go back active duty, I saw a video on Ranger school training. And I'm like, that just sounds awesome. That looks awesome. I want to do that. And that was my goal when I went back signed up to go active duty after a very short stint in the reserve. It was like 2 months long. Went back, reclassed as an infantryman. Ended up getting 82nd Airborne on my contract. and that's how that started. And I, couldn't do the pull-ups, couldn't do the, physically wasn't there yet for a Ranger school, but I was like, this is happening. I'm going to do it. And it just felt, the shoe fit, it was like Cinderella's shoe, putting on that slipper, and it just felt right. And all these challenges as I faced them throughout my military career there's just like, it was it just felt good, I guess, to accomplish these small victories to start off with. But then, as you went to tougher and harder training, and you're getting past, the next day and the next day and the next day, and you're like, shit, I'm still around.
Well, and especially like when you look around you and the people that vanish, the people that don't make it. And and people don't get it because it's not a cruelty thing. It's not like you don't have empathy. Like usually you want these guys to make it, but then when they don't, you feel stronger somehow. It's like that old movie from the 80s, The Highlander. Like you just like absorb their energy when they don't make it.
It is. Yeah, in a strange way it does. And it's like, so as an unsure kid coming out of Chicago, it was kind of with no direction. Joining the military for me, not that it saved me from the streets or anything like that or any stretch. It's just it saved me for myself, if anything, and my own vices and laziness and stuff like that. As I went along, I picked up these skill sets and more than anything, to start off with, I picked up this discipline to the hard right versus the easy left kind of thing. I picked up these nuggets of discipline to keep moving forward. And then as you also progress, you're also picking up training. You're also, picking up confidence. You're picking up all these added benefits of training. And so by the time I decided to go special forces, and it really is like graduate level. If you look at a career progression in combat arms, specifically in special operations, when you get to SF, it's most definitely graduate level. A lot more is expected out of you. A lot of delegated authorities, a lot of responsibilities. A lot of integrity is expected out of you to get shit done. So all that for me, I fed off of it. And if you want to really crush the morale of an SF dude, it's basically micromanagement. You will absolutely. That is the absolute opposite of what you want to do with any soft guy, I think, in general, because they want to do good, and you can't put a price on it. Like, yeah, it's nice to have all the special duty pay, no one's going to complain about that, but you definitely don't do it for that. You do it because you get so much more out of it.
It's the only place I've ever been in my life where, and Chicago SWAT came close to this, but it didn't apply 100%. Like the good guys at SWAT were like this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But SF is the only place I've ever been in my life where everybody woke up every morning and thought, how can I prove I've earned my place today? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everybody, even the dirtbags were like, what can I do to show that I'm supposed to be here?
Yeah. You earn you got to earn your keep every day. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's something special about that, and like, I'm a big reader at heart. Like I'm a big geek at heart. Right. And people watch these things like, the movie Troy or, it just Braveheart or, the Tales of King Arthur, right? They read that stuff, or they watch The Lord of the Rings or, any of that stuff with these larger than life characters, usually flawed, but still in a way kind of superhuman almost,
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people all the time that I got to live with people like that. Like they're still out there, it's dude, there's no price that wasn't too big to pay for that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it elevates your game, your professionalism, your skill sets, your because you want to be just as good or better, and sometimes you got that competitive edge among your peers, but you also in the back of your mind is like, I don't want to be the last guy. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't want to be the freaking the slowest guy or the biggest turd in the group. You don't want
the weak link. Yeah, nobody.
Yeah,
wants to be
you don't want to be
link.
nobody. Exactly. Yeah, thank you. The weak link. Nobody wants to be the weak link. So, being around that kind of environment is fantastic. It really is. And going on to lead, the leadership stuff that I eventually ended up doing, being a team sergeant. I think it was how to tap into that, with the guys that you work with without, being that micromanager or and basically exploiting their strengths and mitigating weaknesses so that for the team. That's the way I saw it being a team sergeant, was managing personalities and versus like, hey, look at me, follow me, kind of leadership thing. Yeah, there's always that part of it, the lead by example kind of stuff. Absolutely carries weight. But at the same, when you get to our level of camaraderie and team and teamwork, I think it really relies on decent, personnel management. As far as dealing with different personalities, especially because you're dealing with dominant personalities, which can be pretty tough sometimes.
Yeah, managing that, minimizing the internal conflict, and kind of putting everybody in the best role. And I think everybody's got this idea that, like, two ideas that are false about SF, right? One is that people think that everybody knows about well, you got the 2 weapon sergeants, you got the 2 commo guys, you got the 2 medics. And yes, those are their jobs, but there's all these other jobs that have to get done. And you got to plug in who does them best, regardless of what their MOS is or what schools they've been to. And I think the best team sergeants are like just brilliant at that, at like making sure everybody's doing a job that is kind of fit for them.
Yeah.
And everything's kind of getting done,
Right. It's called, so you remember Eric Pence.
Oh yeah.
Chief Pence.
Legend.
Yeah.
He's definitely one of the larger than life characters that really exist.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. He made quite a name for himself. And Eric, there was a couple nuggets of wisdom that that he imparted to me and have stuck. And one of them was, you got to find your niche in SF. So meaning, okay, great, you're a medic, or you're a Charlie, or you're a weapons guy, but it's so much more beyond that. What's your niche? Are you an ASOC guy? Are you a long gunner? Are you also the combatives guy? You could be any one of those guys and not be the weapons guy.
Yeah.
You find, or you just nerd out on intel stuff, whatever it is. So you find your niche beyond your MOS, and then there's even subgenres that beyond that, that help with the team, such as, hey, you're good with money. Guess what? You're one of the PA guys, for the out fund.
Well, we always got to buy that gravel.
Yeah,
inside joke for everybody out there.
So that, or you got a guy who's a grease monkey on the side. Well, he knows what to look for when it comes to hiring mechanics or assistants. Guy who's into carpentry, that kind of thing. So there's finding your niches, and that was one of Eric's things. And I didn't realize how important that is, because when I first got to SF, it's like I had a Ranger qualified heavy team. And I was like, oh man, this team's awesome, because we're a bunch of hard hitters, and we all, a majority of us went to Ranger school. This is when we first got to the team 4. And it wasn't until later as a team sergeant, I'm like, nah, actually, you don't want that. It's very linear, you know. You want to. It really does make a difference when you have a diverse skill set that you bring to a team. Because once you get out there as a team, it's just you and 11 other dudes or 10 other dudes, and that's it. And you got to figure shit out. And it's 100% relying on whatever your skill sets are on that ODA.
You know, and I always thought that was one of our strengths in 20th group and in 19th group too. I mean, we were never in 19th. But,
yeah.
And the guard groups have their weaknesses too. Don't get me wrong. It's hard to stay on top of everything as a part-timer. You know, it's hard to sometimes keep some of the standards up. Absolutely, right? But there's so many guys with such diverse civilian careers in 20th and 19th groups that they can bring that stuff to the table, you know?
Yeah.
Like I was a cop, so I was an ASO guy. You know what I mean? Because it just fit. You know. You know how
to talk to people.
Yeah, how to run snitches. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
How to do interviews and run snitches. You know.
Right.
And then you got guys that are in the trades. You got guys that do all kinds of things they can bring in, and you can use that. And it gives you kind of this depth and diversity of experience outside of the Army, I think, that helps out the mission a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that I heard this one story. I think the guy's name was May. He was an officer in 20th. And when he went through selection, it was one of those stay up all night kind of doing silly shit, sleeped up. And one of the things was some insane mathematical equation.
Oh, I remember this story. Yeah.
and he's like, dude, finished it, turned it in, and he's like, and the instructor's like, no one's ever done this before. Like, what are you? The guy said, what do you work for NASA or something like that? And he's like, actually, Sergeant, I do. The guy was an astrophysicist or some shit for NASA.
And that's the other great thing about SF, man, is and this applies both active duty and guard, is like just the people that come in. Like we were talking about, and anybody that's seen Black Hawk Down, the young Sergeant Jason Eversman is a real guy, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he now is in a rock band. Well, before he joined the Army, he was the lead guitarist for Nirvana and Soundgarden. Like you don't see that in the rest of the Army, stuff like that,
Right. Yeah.
Like I've known guys who were in the Peace Corps before. We had a guy that was the first guy to do a face transplant. Remember?
Yeah.
Like just the stuff you see that people have done in their lives, and they bring it into SF. It's amazing. It's like this. You just don't see that in most places.
Yeah, it is pretty cool seeing these various talents, surface on a team. It's pretty cool.
So the Jason Eversman point is a good segue, I think. I want to talk about one of the things you've been doing the last few years that I think is really cool. So let's talk about the record label a little bit, how that happened, and like how your SF experience kind of helped you out with that, and how that all kind of fits together. You know what I mean, brother?
Yeah. Well, to start off with, like, I'll see if I can dovetail it later on, as far as with resilience and kind of reinventing yourself, especially after a career in the military or law enforcement, or as a first responder in general. Because of the traumas that that guys go through. But I'll segue into that a little later. But going back to the record label, Exodus Stratagem, EXSR for short, based out of Fayetteville, was started up by a band, and the band was made up by Soft Guys Special Forces team. The band's name was Bones Fort. And I saw an article on the Fayetteville Observer. And at the time, my son had just finished 4 years in the Army in 3rd Ranger Bat and moved back in. And he was living with us for a while here in North Carolina. And while we were living together, we were starting to make some music. My son plays piano and guitar. I play drums and guitar and sing. And we started making music, and really damn good. I know I'm kind of biased because it's my son, but I think he's an exceptional songwriter. He's a very creative guy. And so when I read that article, I'm like, oh, this is a good way to learn how to record, because I had some recording equipment and wanted to go down that direction, to capture some of the music, So I reached out, and it turns out that the label was almost on its way out. The current owner and the only owner at that point was Jason Fisher, and was about to close up shop. And there was only like 5 bands on the label at that time, not doing much. And he had the recording studio was an old Civil War house that sounded amazing in there. And anyway, started hanging out with him, started learning, how to record and how the record label works and stuff like that. Eventually, when I reached out to him, I was like, hey, I want to be your intern just to learn. I'll do whatever. I'll scrub shitters. I don't care. Just want to learn how to record, right? So he did. He took me in and started teaching me about record label stuff. And eventually he offered it up to myself and one other guy, Gordon Dame, who also is with the record label. So there's 3 of us. And but it was about a year later, he offered us positions, as board members on the label. So since then, this was 16, 17. Yeah, something like that. 2016, 2017. Since then, I've been with him this whole time, and I think we got like 17 bands now, mostly death metal genre, but we got some hard rock and pop punk bands on the label. But yeah, it's very cool. It's interesting. We've had our ups and downs already, but we're still growing, still having fun with it. We had bands perform on a national stage at the Blue Ridge Rock Festival a couple years ago. We sponsored a couple music festivals for metal in Michigan, and I've got another one coming up in Tennessee. We're sponsoring a VIP section or something like that.
That's very cool. And and I'm sure that like your background as a team sergeant helps you manage everything and kind of get everything done that way.
And exactly, and that's my position on the board. I'm the operations, so I'll run the website, I'll coordinate between the bands, and herding cats. When I was when we were backstage for Blue Ridge Rock Festival, we had 2 bands it was a 4-day fest with like almost 100,000 people there, and one of our bands, Overlord, opened up on the national act, and they opened up for Corrosion of Conformity, Hate Breed, Body Count, Trivium, and Lamb of God. I was backstage for that. That was fantastic.
I bet.
Awesome.
I bet.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
And then like the whole musician thing, like, so I am not a musician, dude. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard me sing when I'm drunk, but if you did, I apologize. I know how horrible it is. Like I am truly bad at this stuff, right? But something I've noticed is that there is a disproportionate amount of top shooting competitors in action shooting sports who are also musicians. And here's why I think that is, right? Because I've done like deep dives into like, sports psychology and how to practice and how to learn things and all that to help make me a better trainer and to help make me better at training myself,
Right.
And musicians know how to practice. It's not training in the same way that like, going to ranger school, the physical exertion is, but it's skill-based training and
discipline.
Yep. And knowing how to get that mindful repetition in and get everything accomplished and get those skills hardwired. Like musicians know how to do that. And that's always something I found really fascinating. And like I said, it's not that I can play music, because believe me, I can't. I kind of wish I could, because I love listening to it, but I suck. I'm horrible. But that's beside the point. You know what I mean? Like that active practice of like mindful, deliberate practice is something I think everybody can learn from. And it's probably something you had kind of a leg up coming in. I don't know if you did music when you were younger.
Yeah, I did music in high school. And,
do you think that helped you learning like everything you had to learn to become an 18 Delta? That ability to know how to practice?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think it particularly helped, because I didn't know at the time. I got diagnosed with ADHD as an adult later on, and then everything made sense once they said, "Yeah, no, you have ADHD," and I'm like, "What?" Yeah, So since I retired, I have a sleep disorder, and then went down rabbit holes. Whether it's I got a neurodegenerative disease coming up in the future, or whether it's just PTSD, or who knows, right? So I've gone down rabbit holes, for my own health, trying to figure out what the hell is going on with me. And in doing so, a neuropsychologist, did a litany of exams and tests and all kinds of stuff. And she's like, at the end of it, sat down with me and my wife, and was like, "You have ADHD." And I'm like, "What? No way." And she explained it, how I have it, and and why, and all this other stuff. And then it all made sense. My childhood made sense. So that said, to answer your question, was did it help? Like, no, I realized like why I would lose my place reading music. I would lose my place all the time.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
So I know I still do kind of can read sheet music, but if I had a rest period, and because like you have in percussion, if you're like, okay, you're doing timpani and you're not playing timpani the whole time, or you're playing whatever, the gong, you're not playing the gong the whole time, and you're just waiting for your part, and then you come in.
Cowbell.
I'd miss it.
The song needs more cowbell.
Yeah, exactly. And if I had a rest, forget it. And if I had to rest over anything more than 2 measures, that's it. Forget it. I'm missing. I want my cue to come in.
So I got an SF joke that I don't think it's not even really a joke, because I kind of really mean it, but it's funny, right? So you know how they give us all those tests in selection, all the psych tests over and over and over again?
Yeah.
But they'll never tell you what psych profile that they're looking for is. They'll never give the details.
Right.
I think I figured it out. Just based on everybody we served with, I think I figured it out. So if you graph ADHD along the axis from like the lower left corner to the top right in ascending, right? And then you graph OCD in ascending from the lower right corner to the top left.
Right.
Where they meet in the middle is the perfect SF soldier. Just enough of each to still be functional.
Yeah, I'd say.
But to have the drive and have the attention to detail and all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings that drives my lady nuts is, if you wait till the last minute, it only takes a minute. So there's something about having ADHD and a sense of urgency when something you've just procrastinated too long or waited too long. You're like, shit, I got to get this done. Then you get this supernatural ability to have this laser focus to get it done. I don't know how it works, but it works.
Yep. So no, without a doubt.
But that is true. I've never heard that before, but yeah, I would say, because I mean, you get OCD because there's a perfectionist streak among a lot of us, some more than others, but that's the reason why, you're better shooters, better at whatever, any kind of tactical application you want to throw in there. It's because of the discipline to do it repeatedly and having the mindset like that wasn't good enough. We got to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth to it. I think a functional level of both is like the ideal SF guy, which kind of leads me to what I used to tell everybody, both in SF and SWAT, that you guys do realize that the same things that make you right for this job make you wrong for almost everything else.
Yeah.
All right. So when you started talking about the rock label, the music label, you mentioned something about how you were going to bring this back around to resilience. What was that going to be about?
Yeah. So a long time ago, when I was dating my wife, who was a law enforcement officer in the Chicagoland area for 10 years, and when we started dating, she suggested this book. It was a short read. It was called Surviving Law Enforcement. And it was, it was emotional survival for
law enforcement officers. Yeah, I've got the book.
Yeah, it's a very short read. And I'm like, well, why am I reading this? She's like, because there's a lot of relevancy, with your career. I'm like, all right, and I read it. And to summarize, it's basically how to navigate the ups and downs of a law enforcement career, with burnout, with PTSD, with being married and being in and staying married, being married and staying married while you're in law enforcement. And there was a lot of relevancy. And one of the things is also that was brought up was suicide in that book. The high level of suicide among law enforcement and first responders. And, there's speculation as to why, but in that book, the author specifically mentioned, well, you ask any cop, like, what are you? They're going to tell you what they are. They're going to tell you they're a cop, because they carry their career on their sleeve. That's who they are. It's part of their persona. You ask a regular person, they're maybe a banker. They may not say they're a banker. They may say, "Oh, I'm a father," or I'm a husband," or maybe describe themselves in terms of a hobby or something like that. So, with that said, it's the author believed that you have to redefine yourself, carrying and have a persona outside of being just the cop. And that being so important. And I think, now that I'm longer in the tooth and seeing our because I'm connected. I was never a cop, so but I'm married to one and have plenty of friends that were cops. And then of course my long career in the military, you see the classic guys that just like, you could see the guy from across the room. He's clearly a veteran, or he's clearly a cop. You could read the room and see exactly who's who, and not just, okay, that guy's military. Like, no, that guy's SF guy. You could, because the way they carry themselves. Well, and of course, there's always the possibility of, if you want to find out if there's a Navy SEAL at your party, just wait 5 minutes and you'll find out. They'll tell you, well, I think in many cases, I would challenge. It'd be challenging to say that maybe that it wouldn't be outside the sphere that there's Green Berets that are also the same ilk, and they'll let you know, and they carry their veteran status at the forefront. But when they lose that identity from getting out or becoming injured and having to medically retire, or like us, making it to the end with all fingers and toes, that identity is now gone. And that's a hard, from what I've seen, that's hard on a lot of dudes. So I think that as a precursor, as I was getting out, and I kind of saw that, and that book, I read that back in 2007.
Yeah.
And I still remember it because it carried a lot of weight. And then I retired in 2015. So years later, I'm remembering like, hey, don't forget the lessons in that book. Like, don't let, it define you. Never let it, I'm not letting it go. I mean, you can look around the background here and it's similar to yours. I got my I Love Me wall. Yeah. I'm very proud of my service and stuff like that. And I'm never going to forget it, or the friendship and the camaraderie and the good times and the bad. But I'm not going to let it define me, going forward. It's a chapter in the book. Okay. So you open another chapter. And I think it's very important for building resilience in a guy. It's huge. Or gal, that gets into law enforcement, first responder, or military. That book. I wish there would be a veteran. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll write it. That has something similar to what that gentleman wrote.
And it's like, I remember when I retired from group, it didn't really hit me at all because I still had Chicago PD and I had SWAT.
Yeah.
It was different, but it was close enough that it wasn't like I'd gotten out. You know what I mean? And then when I retired from CPD, even with having all these other things that I'm into and having, interests outside of work and not thinking that was just, that my identity was just being a soldier and a cop, it still hit me hard. Like there was still an adjustment period that probably lasted about a year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it wasn't like I struggled. It wasn't like I was doing badly, but it definitely affected me without a doubt.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like a Sunday blues kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was more just, and I'm okay with it now. Like I'm at peace with it, man. Like it doesn't, I will always be nostalgic for the things we did and the friends we had and all of that, right? Like that's always going to be part of me. But I also don't want to be that guy anymore now. Does that make sense?
Right.
And not in a bad way at all. Just like I'm ready to do other things. And I think that if I hadn't found that place, I think it would have hit me for a lot longer and a lot harder.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And now take what I've said and throw in substance abuse, throw in a divorce, throw in anything else. Basically, once you lose, you not only lose your identity, but also the sense of what it is in a way to be a man, which is to be a provider, to be. So some guys who go through their end of their what defines them on top of that some personal hardship, then the long-term solution for a short-term problem then becomes an option in the guy's head. So I think that's where the being proactive on that, you don't know the future. You may, guy lose his wife, the divorce, or ill health, or an accident, or some shit, or kids, or something god awful, and then on top of the fact, with losing their identity, it's crushing. So that I took that, so I have the record label. I have a couple other businesses, but I also got 45 acres, and it used to be a goat farm, and it's going to be a goat farm again. And I'm in the middle of putting up a fence and refurbishing the infrastructure, and hopefully this spring I'll have goats out here. For just as a city boy, I have no idea how to raise goats, but I'm going to figure it out. Get some chickens and goats.
And like we just have an acre now, right? It's not like it's huge. But for somebody that spent as long in Chicago as I did, an acre is pretty big plot of land.
Pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even my place in Brookfield, that was a postage stamp. Yeah.
I only had a yard in my last house in Chicago. Before that, it was all stuff inside of buildings that I owned. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right.
So it's nice, man. Like I'm kind of digging like working the yard and doing improvements around the house and like all the stuff that I kind of never really did as a younger man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some peace to that. And like going back to the resilience thing you were talking about, I think what hits a lot of us hard too is the injury cascade. You know, it all starts to add up, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to lie, man. I thought I was invulnerable. Like, I really did. I thought I could just shrug off everything. I mean, I've had some pretty bad injuries, and they didn't even feel like they slowed me down until they did. Until they did.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't slow me down at the time, but they sure the hell started slowing me down around 55. You know, and I think that if your identity, like you said, is solely wrapped up in being that guy, whether it's the tough cop or, you know, the action guy in soft, right? And all of a sudden you're faced with these injuries and knowing that physically you're not going to be the same again. Like that's got to hit a lot of people really hard. And I'm not going to lie, that's part of what hit me hard, you know?
Yeah. Part of the whole resiliency part too is that I think is often underplayed, is to stay in shape as best as possible.
Yeah.
I still work out. I still watch what I eat. I still, and I think that helps a lot with everything from brain fog to being active, to feeling good about yourself. You know, physical fitness is the foundation, in my opinion, to everything.
Oh,
mental
I agree.
Mental health, spiritual health, emotional health. It is the foundation to everything. If you don't keep your body as close as possible, I know it's hard, especially with the American diet being the piece of shit that it is. But if you really work towards it, I think it makes a huge difference. I've made strides, even, you know, at 50, I'm 54, in maintaining my health, and still, you know, doing PRs on both running and strength training.
I think there's a key here too, though. I think that it ties into what we were talking about, and this ties into a lot of things. I think, like everything in life, this is something that I wish I'd been better at when I was younger, because I wasn't. Is being process focused about it rather than results focused. You know, because like I am not going to be able to be the athlete I was at 57 and up. It's just not, with the injuries I've got and the surgeries I've had.
Right. Yeah. It's
like
not possible.
I'm not going to perform like I did when I was 29. It's just not going to happen. Right.
Right.
But I can still perform better than other people do at 57. Yeah. I can still perform better than other people with as much metal in their skeleton as I do can. You know what I mean? Like it's all
there's
about.
And there's some pretty sad statistics that are coming out for just the American population in general, as far as physical fitness is. Like, they can't do, you know, a vast majority, something like 70% or something like that, can't do a single pull-up and can't do 20 continuous push-ups. You know, like, what? Like a young buck can't? Like, yeah, that's a vast majority, over 50%.
And that's so sad. Like,
yeah,
especially because, like, and push-ups, I mean, for us, push-ups were always a big thing because of the Army, right?
Right.
But like if I couldn't do 100 push-ups in 2 minutes, I thought I was a dirtbag. Yeah. Like if I had a bad day and couldn't do that, or I was hurt and couldn't do that, like it was crushing. I'm like, what do you mean I didn't do 100? You know? Yeah. And not that I'm not saying that to brag, because I'm by no means the biggest push-up stud out there. That's not my point. Right. But it's that if you can't do 20, and you're in your 20s or in your teens, how does that even happen?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but so you're still doing training, right? Like are you training civilians still? What are you doing? You've got like, I know you do concealed carry stuff. What else you got going on?
So I got my own LLC, I contract with the government, as well as training military, law enforcement, and the prepared civilian. My company name is Studies and Observations Consulting. We do have a webpage and stuff like that. I have a massive company, with millions underneath me. It's just me, and maybe an assistant instructor or something like that. I'll get some SF guys to help me out.
Yeah.
But so with Studies and Observations, I teach concealed. I'm a certified instructor for the state of North Carolina, so I teach concealed carry. Also, not that it's much, but it means something, I guess, on the civilian side. NRA instructor for pistol and rifle. So I got those certifications. So that I have here on my property, I have a 200-meter range, two directional as well. So I got facades I could set up so you could shoot in two different directions with a backstop. I'm in the process of making a point man course because I have a pretty decent draw with decent sides to it. Got frange ammo to and have a trail set up where you negotiate the trail from one end to the other with moving targets and pop-up targets and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah. Keep it fun. The intent is, I mean, for layman's terms, yeah, it's a point man course, but it's a situational awareness course where the individual going through this Kim game stuff associated with it as well. So make like a blood trail, and like you got to follow it with situational targets, things on the situational targets, which you're familiar with, the Lucky Charms targeting kind of stuff, the blue diamonds, the red triangles, etc. So work on memory as well. So when you complete the course, you're looking at where your shots went, good shots, bad shots, because there's no shoot targets involved in it, but also which is important in law enforcement is recall when it comes to writing a report. So your recall being important. So what did you see? Where did you see it? Which was first? Which was second? That kind of thing. So I've been doing that. It's not a ton of work, but I don't push heavy because I got so many irons in the fire that I keep busy for everything from work, trying to get this farm going to the record label, going out, studies and observations out, with the government contracts that I do have. I'm teaching, tactical medicine.
Yeah. It'll also be my next question, since you're an 18 Delta. That'll be my next question, if you're doing any SOMED type stuff.
Yeah. So I kept up my national registry. I one of the smartest decisions I've ever made besides joining the Army was to go through the med refresher right before I retired while I was on terminal leave. I'm like, probably would be a good idea to go through the med refresher. And I hadn't done the refresher in years. Well, that allowed me to get my recertification as a tactical paramedic. And then after that, I used that to get a Georgia paramedic license. And then I used that to get a North Carolina paramedic license. And then I used that to get my national registry back, which had long expired. So I challenged the test. So I've been diligent since I retired to keep that national registry certification. So I'm going to SOMA. I got a med refresher coming up through the company I contract with. So yeah, I try to keep my medical skills as fresh as possible. I enjoy teaching it as well. So, I've taught a couple classes here to the prepared civilians. Well, we don't call it TCCC, but we call it TECC, Tactical Emergency Combat or Casualty Gear, Tactical Emergency Casualty Gear. So yeah, I do that, enjoy doing that. Still doing that.
So we sent our SWAT medic to the conference one year, Brian Barsley. And I was I was 50 at the time. This was right before I retired. And Brian comes back. I don't know if you ever met Brian, but he was a squared away dude. He'd been an infantryman in the Marine Corps, and then he was a medic in the reserves in the Army, and saw combat as both, right? So squared away guy. Our head medic for SWAT. So he comes back and he goes, yeah, we had this presentation about operator longevity and joint damage. And he goes, they decided that every year you're operational is 5 years on your joints. And then he looked at me and he goes, you joined the Army at 18, right? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, and you're 50 now, right? I'm like, yeah. He said, let me do the math. I said, don't even. I don't want to know.
Certainly does a number on your joints, particularly your back.
No, it does. It does. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because we were talking about it before the podcast started, and I didn't even know you were doing this, and it sounds really cool. Tell me about the airsoft thing.
Okay. This was kind of another thing that kind of just landed on my lap. A buddy of mine, one of my best friends at the time, was in cahoots with another guy and starting an airsoft company, technically military simulations, right? So there are several military simulation companies out there, and basically the way they work is they get a venue, a place where you can run around and shoot BBs at each other, and basically do force on force. A buddy of mine asked me, and he's like, hey, you're really creative, and making stuff up, why don't you give this world, I've always thought I was really good at doing pretty creative training. You being one of the guys who've been through, I'm sure you remember the Springfield and the Springfield training exercise that was like 4 days.
Yeah.
And also the one in Chicago that we had in Chicago, that was fantastic. So that same skill set, used it with this new company called Centurion Combat Simulations. So I was the creative guy behind it. What I did was, instead of just doing regular force on forces, during our events, I modeled them after Robin Sage. Basically putting dilemmas and stuff like that. So it's not just, force on force guys with, operating within a rule set of shooting BBs at each other, to keep things fair. Is very much like in our world, you do what it takes to win kind of thing. So unconventional thinking is welcomed. A winning without shooting a single round is also, encouraged. So being able to outwit your enemy is what it boils down to. So one of the best compliments that we've gotten through one of our players is like, this kid said, I got 15 years of playing airsoft, and I can't believe that the most fun event I've ever participated in was yours, and I never shot a single BB the whole weekend. And I was like, what? And people just in that field, because I was completely ignorant to the whole airsoft thing, people in the airsoft industry, it's like, that's the whole thing. You're running around shooting the hell out of each other with BBs. That's what makes it fun. Well, I'm not trying to take the fun out of that, because it is fun, and just trying to introduce people into a different way of thinking, a different way of negotiating. We've partnered on occasion with another company called TCA, Third Coast Airsoft. It's run by Sal, he's still in. He's a lieutenant colonel in the Army.
Okay.
Great guy, loves our product. He's always talking us up. His company is very successful. He'll have an event with, anywhere from 500 to 800 players that'll show up to his events. Ours are a smaller scale, and being that I'm the one that creates the stuff, I kind of like it that way. I don't want it to be too big, because it becomes a monster very quick. But it's cool. Our events are just under 48 hours over 3 days. We have about 2 to 3 a year, different venues. Our next one's in July, but with Scatatuck, as a matter of fact, mid-July. And the storyline, it's a continuous storyline. That's the other thing that I have. So the players drive the storyline. So if they succeed at certain mission sets or they do something off the cuff, and then it 100% affects the storyline. So it's almost like, okay, this is me nerding out. It's kind of like I'm the dungeon master. I come up with a general scheme, how things I see things are going to unfold. But at the end, players have input as a direction of the story. So these players drive the storyline as well. So there's been plenty of times where I thought the storyline was going in one direction and the players had their different ideas about doing it, and that we had to completely change on the fly, you know. So it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. And then when at the end of the weekend, when Sunday, when we finish up on a Sunday, the players just, you know, just falling over themselves and how awesome it was. And especially new players that come to our games and they're like, that all expectations are just completely blown out of the water. They just, you know, and there are some players who just, it's not their cup of tea. They rather run around doing their own thing. What I like to call tailgate airsoft, which is basically you go in, you shoot each other with BBs, come out, have lunch, hang out with the boys. And, you know, if that's your thing, that's fine too. But we're not like that. It's like, we got a mission set. You give it a warning order. You plan. You go execute. So it's 100% entertainment is the intent and design, because we're not teaching tactical nothing. We're just, you know, giving a left and right limits, telling the players, hey, figure it the fuck out, you know, and go from there. And but that's not to say that you can't get something out of it from being a tactician or being in the military or being in the law firm. We do have plenty of fans that are currently in or were in, a lot of veterans, a lot of law enforcement come to our games for that reason, because that exposure to that fishbowl exposure that we provide. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that sounds really cool, actually. Sounds you know, some of my fondest memories, apart from being on the team, but like Army as a whole, right? You know, like larger scale stuff, or Robin Sage. It was like the coolest time in training.
Yeah.
And what made it cool, like you said, was not pulling the trigger. It was trying to figure out how to do things without having to pull the trigger.
Right. Dealing with power brokers, you know, negotiating. So the background to the storyline is it's a very Colombia FARC kind of thing. We're in a fictitious Latin American country called Copan, majority of the time. And there's a neighboring country, very Venezuela-like, that's trying to undermine it. And we're trying to support and prop up the government in Copan. And there's cartels. So it's basically a little bit of Narcos.
Yeah.
The TV show Narcos. A little bit like Platoon.
And a little bit of like Clear and Present Danger.
Yeah. Clear and Present Danger, Jason Bourne, and quite a bit of Monty Python. So it's a combination of the dude. It's hilarious.
That sounds good.
I've had dilemmas where players just knock it out of the park. I'm like, I don't think an SF guy could have done better. I really don't think so. And then there's absolute disasters that you just falling out of your seat. Like, why? What were you thinking, dude? What were you thinking? Why would you do that? You know,
yeah. And dumpster fire in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, and see, the wonderful thing is there's no ramifications. It's just fun. You know, no one's career or no one's getting hurt. You know, that kind of thing.
So if somebody wants to get a hold of you for any of these endeavors, how do they go about it? If they want to get signed by the label, if they want to come play the airsoft, if they want to train with you for concealed carry, like how do they approach you?
Perfect. So the record label, Exodus Stratagem, exsrmusic.com. So it's exsrmusic.com is our website. And on there's a contact page. So if you make music and you think we're interested, it's not just death metal, any kind of rock genre, we'll take a look at it. We'll take a serious look at it. Just hit us up on it with a link to your music, and we'll take a listen to it and let you know. For concealed carry and the local stuff in North Carolina, studies and observations consulting. I do MTTs, and I have done them before. I've traveled up to Indiana and stuff like that to do some training. So you can contact me through there. There's a contact page as well on studiesanobservations.com. And for Centurion, you can follow us on Facebook. We do have a Discord channel where we do a lot of our planning and stuff like that, and coordination prior to it. And it kind of helps carry the storyline to the next in between. It kind of fills the gap. So that's the Centurion community page on Discord. And we do have a web page called joincenturion.com, and that's for Centurion combat simulations. And if you want to come to one of our events for that. Well, those are my irons in the fire.
Oh man, it sounds like a lot of really good stuff. And I got to tell you, brother, it's been great catching up. I don't think we've really talked for about 4 or 5 years, and it's nice to catch up for sure. It's good to see you. It's good to see you doing well. Glad the wife is doing well. I'm glad you got a bunch of things going on. You're staying busy and staying young.
Yeah. Well, really glad you reached out, man. Can catch up, and I do have my, I'm happy. I much like yourself. I don't need this other income, but it's nice to have because I am retired and I'm getting that check. But I'm I got to stay busy. That's part of it too. Staying busy, got to stay relevant, and and with that said, there are things that I'm pretty passionate about. Now that I'm longer in the tooth, I'm still passionate about teaching, and I'm still passionate about, the resilience and the next generation of warriors that are either on the streets, keeping us safe, or, getting ready to go down range. And, I'm here, if you, on a personal level too, if you guys want to reach out, you can reach out to that same thing, Studies and Observations Consulting webpage. And reach out. If I don't have the answer, I'll point you in the right direction, man.
No, sounds good, brother. And it has been way too long. I've really enjoyed this conversation for sure. Hope everybody else enjoyed it as much as I did. I think it's been a great episode. It was great to catch up with Daoud from Mexicanistan. And we'll see everybody next time. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.